And joining me now is Mary Trump, President Trump's niece, author of Too Much and Never Enough, and the Substack, The Good in Us. She also hosts Mary Trump Media on YouTube. Mary, good evening. Thanks for joining us here. I want to start off with The Atlantic has an article out today that is titled The Once Shameless President is Deeply Embarrassed, written by my colleague Jonathan Lemire. In it, he writes, quote, Donald Trump has shown something else, an ability to be embarrassed. When that has happened, he has lashed out angrily and has been willing to deploy the levers of government and his compliant staff to menace those he blames for his humiliation. Mary, are you seeing this in your uncle, the president, today?
Yes, and first of all, it's great to be with you. I think this is a really important topic because we are watching the president of the United States declining across every category: physical, psychological, emotional, and cognitive. And Donald is presenting an increasing danger to the people of this country. And what's really interesting is that he has spent his entire life trying desperately to avoid being humiliated. And now, on an almost daily basis, he's humiliating himself. And Donald has always been somebody who cannot take responsibility for anything. He is always looking for a scapegoat. We're seeing this now with Jeanine Pirro and Doug Burgum. But here's the thing, when it is so blatantly his fault, all of the myriad problems that we're dealing with right now, it's getting harder and harder to sell that narrative to people.
Mary, he's still pushing the pool vandalism theory without evidence, and I think in a way that it encapsulates such an easy, disprovable thing, right? In some ways, conspiracy theories are oftentimes hard for us, especially as journalists, to decisively say, this is not fact, this is not real. But he was willing to have, Jeanine Pirro was willing to tell him that he was wrong. To what extent do you believe that there are other people like Jeanine Pirro that are standing up to the president? Is there anybody in his own family that is doing this at this point?
I highly doubt it, and that's because all of Donald's relationships are transactional. So as long as somebody is getting something from him, or conversely, as long as he's getting something from them, they will continue to do whatever they have to do to get the benefit of the relationship. What's interesting, what we're seeing with Pirro is a new twist, because we've seen a long line of people over the years who've been 100% loyal to Donald, and he has turned around and destroyed them or cut them off. Loyalty is a one-way street. But Pirro has reached this point because what Donald is asking her to do is risk disbarment by bringing fraudulent prosecutions against completely innocent people. So the reflecting pool may seem like a minor issue, and in some ways, I guess you could say that it's just representative of the malignant incompetence of the Trump regime. But on the other hand, we could also look at it as a core problem of this presidency. Donald is so desperate to change the subject. He is so desperate to be right all the time that he is wasting his time and taxpayer money on issues that are taking attention away from much more important things. He had a meltdown in the Oval Office, an incomprehensible meltdown about the reflecting pool for 8 minutes. We are a nation at war because he chose a war against Iran, and he is completely obsessed with things that are relevant to nobody but him.
One of the dynamics that we're all watching unfold is somebody who quite openly doesn't sleep. And we know that because Sean Hannity has said, quote, he's almost always awake, that he receives, Sean Hannity does calls from him at 2, 3, 6 in the morning. Secretary Scott Bessent, he said that he's received a call from him at 2 a.m. And I know some people can operate more on little sleep than others, but the extent of this, it really turns your head. My question for you as somebody that's had a lifetime of insight into him is this how he's always operated? And you also say that he's losing impulse control. What do you mean by that?
First of all, as to the sleep issue, my grandfather needed very little sleep. But my grandfather was also a very healthy person. He didn't drink, he didn't do drugs, he didn't smoke. He had a relatively good diet, and he's just one of those people who's lucky to be able to get by on 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night. But he also gave his children the message that needing sleep was weakness, and being weak was not something anybody could ever allow themselves to be thought of. So I think Donald took that to heart and feels like in order to be a tough guy, he needs to get by on very little sleep. He's not healthy. We know that he drinks an excessive amount of Diet Coke, and of course, he's getting older. So this is going to have a serious impact on his ability to stay awake during the day, to focus. It's going to have a negative impact on his short-term memory. And I mean, this is all of a piece. As I mentioned, he's obviously in cognitive decline. His father had Alzheimer's. We see that with the sleeping during the day, and impulse control or loss of impulse control is also a sign. And Donald's somebody who's never had great impulse control anyway. So I think the best way to look at it is Donald's not different. Just all of these things are revealing who he's always been all along, and he's just having a harder time hiding it from us.
We should be clear that this is not a medical evaluation here, but this is one in understanding somebody that's known him for a lifetime. Mary, on that front, you've separated from your uncle years ago, but there were some folks that had MAGA megaphones in 2024 that really helped boost his campaign. They're deserting your uncle in the droves. I want you to take a listen.
We've got to support Trump or civilization will collapse. Those are quotes. And it's true. I'm calling for it right now. 25th Amendment, impeachment, whatever needs to happen to get this front and center, to get control of our country.
I've been very open with the fact that I will be supporting Trump. I'm completely embarrassed that I supported Trump in the past because of, the fact that he completely flipped on his entire base.
I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
I'm behind you. I never even wanted Trump to win until he was the only guy to vote for.
I became an active Trump supporter when they raided Mar-a-Lago. You and I and everyone else who supported him, you wrote speeches for him, I campaigned for him. I mean, we're implicated in this for sure. I want to say I'm sorry for misleading people. It was not intentional.
Mary, I last saw you in person at one of the Joe Biden-Donald Trump debate during the summer of 2024. And I wish I had maybe asked you the question at the time, could you foresee one of his primetime speakers in Tucker Carlson departing from him so suddenly? But did you think at the time that potentially that there would be this sort of a separation happening with such swiftness?
I don't know if I would have been able to pinpoint it so specifically, but it isn't surprising. And I think anybody who's known Donald at all, and you're right, I'm not a neurologist or anything, but there's plenty of evidence based on my own experiences, my grandfather's Alzheimer's, that he is deteriorating. But it's not even that's the issue. It's the fact that Donald will always get worse, and as he loses a step, he becomes more desperate and he lashes out. And it is becoming harder and harder for people like Tucker Carlson, et cetera, to support him. But what I'm seeing isn't a change in heart, because Donald has been doing horrific things for the last decade. He's been accused of horrific things. He's been indicted and found liable for horrific things. What these people are doing is rebranding in the hopes that there is a future for the Republican Party beyond Donald. But I think it's also really important to realize that these people speaking out now are largely responsible for keeping him in power, and he's